We're going to start by taking a nice gait stride forward. I have the staff here for assistance if stability is an issue, because we're going to stay in this position for a good little bit. Generally, if we're doing this kind of work at our feet, it's because there's some instability either at the foot, ankle, knee, or in the hip. So having a little bit of extra stability just to make sure to prevent falls and so that we can isolate that foot and get a little bit better work. So make sure that that stride is decent. A lot of times when we take a step for the purpose of doing a movement practice work, that stride is taken a little short. So I want to have a nice long stride. I want the ball of the foot grounded. So I want to be able to feel pressure pushing downward into the floor through that ball of the foot. We're going to make sure that our weight is largely shifted forward into the front leg. You can imagine like 70% to 80% of your weight is in the front leg, 20 to 30% in the back leg. We're going to actively straighten the back knee, like you're reaching the back of your knee to the wall behind you. At the same time, you're reaching your heel downward to the floor, like a root trying to dig into the ground. So active straight knee, active reach through the heel. That should get us a little bit of stretch through the front of the thigh, especially if we're maintaining that forward shift. I want to watch out for, as I reach back, allowing my body weight to shift back onto that back leg. From here, we're going to allow our knee to softly bend down towards the floor as we drive into the ball of the foot, lifting the heel like we're trying to push the heel up to the ceiling. And then we're reaching that heel back, actively straightening that knee, moving back and forth through this about 5 to 10 times. I want to feel that load through the ball of the big toe joint. And then that reach through the heel, see if we can feel that length through the front of the hip. Notice how much range of motion do you have through the big toe joint? Does it feel stiff, tight, achy? Is it painful? If it's painful, then I want to back off a little bit. I do not want to move beyond a level 2 on a scale of 0 to 10. 1 and 2 are slight discomfort. Once we get to about 5 to 10 reps, we're staying in this side position, but we're going to rotate our back knee out and roll the foot so that we are on the outside edge of the foot, the pinky toe side of the foot. The ball of the big toe is going to be off the ground. Everything else from here is going to be the same. Actively reach that knee back, actively reach the heel down, and then soften, drive down through the ball of the pinky toe side, lifting the heel up to the ceiling, and then actively straighten that knee, actively reach the heel back. Doing this for 5 to 10 reps. Should feel a little bit of stretch through that pinky toe side ball of the foot. But what I also want to really pay attention to is how well can I put pressure and put that drive through that outside ball of the foot. Does it feel a little unstable? Generally, we are pretty good with load through the ball of the foot, but load to that outside part of the foot can be neurologically weak, which sets us up to be prone for ankle injuries. Once you do 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch to the other side. Again, nice overstride, slight overstride. Make sure the ball of the foot is well grounded. We're actively reaching that knee back, actively reaching the heel down, making sure that our weight is shifted forward onto our front leg. From here, let that back knee soften, driving down through the ball of the foot, lifting that heel up high. Feel that stretch through the ball of the big toe. Then actively reaching the knee back, rooting that heel towards the floor. Again, make sure that we're not shifting our weight back as we do so. The more we're able to keep that weight shifted forward, As we reach back through that heel and reach that actively straighten the knee, we should get some stretch through the front of the thigh. How does this side feel compared to the other side? The two places that I'm most interested in, ball of the big toe joint, is the right foot or the left foot tighter, more restricted? Whichever side is tighter, more than likely the front of that hip is also a little bit more stretchy and tight. These are important things to pay attention to with our gait mechanics. Once we've done 5 to 10 through the big toe, we're going to let that knee turn out, rolling our foot to the ball of the pinky toe. Everything else is the same. Actively reaching the knee back, actively rooting the heel, softening the knee, driving the heel up, and then reaching that heel and that knee back again for 5 to 10 reps. Again, so in this part, notice that how much pressure you're able to put through the ball of the pinky toe on this foot compared to the other side. I've had 5 knee surgeries on my right knee. My right foot is actually fairly stable through the ball of the big toe and the ball of the pinky toe. My left hip is tighter and my left foot tends to be a little bit more stuck in supination, compensation for the right knee. Because of that though, I have less stability through the outside ball of the pinky toe side. I can feel it on this foot. I have a little more, just a little more tight and tension through the outside of the leg, and it's harder to load down. So intro to 6 walks, we're going to start light and we want to build our 6 walks into progression. So the first one is we're staying easy. I want to maintain a staff. We're going to step slightly out and away, allowing the knee to turn in. I'm going to load on just the ball of the big toe, keeping the heel off the floor and the outside ball of the foot, pinky toe side ball of the foot off the floor. And this is going to be a weight shift to start with. Shifting our weight, load onto that ball of the big toe joint. See if you can feel the arch of the foot get a little stretch, and then we're going to unload. We can keep that foot in contact with the floor to start with to make sure that we feel balanced and stable. As we feel comfortable with this, I want to start to think like a spring. Allow that energy to absorb and then release. Being soft and smooth, non-painful. Again, the staff is just here to add a little bit extra stability so that we can focus primarily on that foot. We're going to do 5 up to 10 reps. Then we're going to bring our step more in line. We're going to move to the outside edge of the ball, pinky toe side ball of the foot. Heel is still off the ground. Knee is now going to track a little bit out. Again, I have the staff for support. Load, let that weight shift onto that ball of the pinky toe, and then shifting off, letting that weight shift back to the back foot. Going forward and backwards. As this feels comfortable and safe, we can then get a little bit more dynamic. Feel that load and unload. Nice push, and feel that foot kind of pop off the floor again. Again, I want to think like a spring. Feel that spring absorb and release. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're then going to switch to the other side. Ball of the big toe, stepping out and away so that the knee is able to track in. Shifting forward onto that ball of the big toe. Again, pinky toe side is off the floor, heel is off the floor, and then shifting back to that back foot. Again, as that feels safe, we can then start to allow that foot to lightly pop off the floor. If it doesn't feel safe to let that foot pop off the floor, maintain contact and just work weight shift. Feel that front leg absorb a little bit of your weight and then push back to that back foot. Once we get 5 to 10, we're then going to move to the outside edge of the pinky toe side. Again, heels off the floor, ball of the big toes off the floor. This step is coming more in line, and the knee is going to track out more. Again, we have our staff in order to support, especially since this can be an area that we can be a little bit weak in the foot. So I want to make sure that we have a little bit of extra support. And again, my left side, a little less stable than the right side. It's not so unstable that I can't load and unload it, but it just has a different sensation. It doesn't, I would say I don't trust it quite as much as I do the right side. Once we got 5 to 10, we're then going to move back to the right foot, stepping out and away again, letting that knee track in. But now we're going to load ball of the big toe and heel at the same time. So as I step out, that knee is tracking in, heel is on the ground, ball of the big toe is on the ground. Outside edge of the foot is off the ground. That foot is completely rolled in. Doing the shift again. Let that weight shift onto that foot and then shift it back to the back foot. Making sure that this is not painful and feels safe. As it starts to feel safe, we can start to release through the big toe. Again, I want to feel like a spring. Loading that spring, release the spring. See if you can feel some stretch through the arch of the foot, specifically between the ball of the big toe and the heel. Once we do 5 to 10 reps, we're then going to bring that step more in line, and we're going to roll to the outside edge of the foot. Now this is getting into ankle roll position. Again, this is the weaker side of the foot, so I want to be a little extra safe. Again, that's part of the reason we got the staff. Foot steps coming more in line, knee is going to track lightly out. Let that weight shift on it safely, and then shifting off of it onto the back foot. Inhale forward, exhale as we come off and push off that foot. If this feels safe, you can add a little bit dynamic. We can start letting that foot pop off, load and unload. Again, thinking like a spring. Absorb that energy and release that energy. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. First one, stepping out, letting that knee turn in. We're on that inside edge of the foot, ball of the big toe and heel. Outside edge of the foot is off the ground. Shifting weight into that foot, onto that back foot. Making sure that we can absorb that load and then release it. And if that feels safe, we can start to push off through the ball of the foot. Again, absorbing energy like a spring, releasing energy like a spring. Notice if this side feels tighter and more restricted than the other side. My arch on my left foot is tighter. My foot is stuck in supination, which is a higher arch. I also feel a little bit more stretch through the inside edge of my calf, which is an area that I might want to work on related to that foot. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're going to bring our stride more in line, turning that foot to the outside edge. Knee is now going to track lightly out and away. Again, starting with that weight shift forward, weight shift back. Making sure that we can absorb energy, absorb load, and release load. And if that feels good and safe, we can start to let that foot pop off the ground. Now again, notice if this side feels different. Is it a little less stable? Does it feel a little weaker? It feels, again, this is my side of the foot where I got a little less neurology going to this outside edge of the foot. So I've been working on it a lot. It's actually improving, but it's still a little out of balance to the right. Once we get through 5 to 10, now we're coming back to an outside side step. Knee is tracking in, but we're now loading on the heel. And I want to load specifically on the inside edge of the heel. So we're going to let that weight shift, knee tracks in, and then shift back. Only feeling that absorption on the heel and pushing through the heel. And again, if that feels safe, we can start to let that foot pop off the floor. We're still trying to think like a spring. The heel is probably the least springy part of the body, so it may feel a little funky. But as long as we're getting that good, as much absorption and release as possible. Once we get 5 to 10, we're going to bring that stride more in line. Knee is now going to track out, and we're on the outside edge of the heel. Again, shifting forward. This is going to be more like our normal stride, that way our heel strike in a normal gait. But again, feel that load forward and then unload back. And again, if that feels good, we can start to let that heel pop off the floor to bring us back to that back foot. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch, do the same thing on the other side, starting with step goes out, knee tracks in. We're on that inside edge of the heel. Feel that shift first, making sure it feels safe. Can we do this movement? Then we can start to get a little bit more dynamic in nature. Notice the difference on this side compared to the other side. Does it feel clunkier? Does it feel less stable? Once we do 5 to 10, we're bringing that foot in line. Knee is now going to track more out. Again, this is getting more into our normal gait, feeling that heel strike on the more of the outside edge of the heel. And we can get to where we get that nice release, pushing back. Again, trying to think like a spring. And once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're now going to get into our balance clock. So, balance clock, I want to imagine that we are standing on the face of a clock. We're going to come into a single leg stance, but real important is maintaining a tripod nature of your foot. So I want to make sure that the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel are evenly grounded through the floor. And as we're doing our movements, they need to stay stuck to the ground. If the foot starts rolling back and forth, where the ball of the big toe lifts up, ball of the pinky toe lifts up, or the heel comes up, then you're not doing the movement correctly. You're going too far, too fast. You need to slow it down and make it smaller. We're looking at building up good balance of knee, hip, spine, and above through a stable platform of the foot. And if we can't maintain that stable platform, then we're not getting those good connections. So again, the staff we can use to create a little bit of extra stability, which should make it easier to stay grounded through the foot. From here, we're imagining that we are on that face of the clock and we're reaching to the different numbers of the clock. But I'm seeing how big can I make the circumference of the clock? How far can I push the circle forward, extending through my toes? How far can I push back, extending through the toes? How much can I reach out to the side? How much can I come across the back of my body? Again, reaching out to the side. And I really want to extend the toes in each one. And I want to spend about a minute. I also want to go into our corner angles as well. Seeing how far can I make that clock? How well can I maintain that perfect balance and stability through the ball, through my tripod foot? I need to be able to reach all the way out and come all the way back up to tall on each one. And once we've done a minute or so on that foot, we can switch to the other foot. Again, Spread foot, grounded, tripod, slow movement. I want to only go as far as I can maintain that grounded foot. Now the rest of our body can be a little shaky as long as that foot stays loaded and grounded. Again, we're reaching into all of these angles of the circle. Now you may notice that one foot is more stable than the other foot. That's going to be important. Notice how that instability is more than likely connected to on the same side that feels a little stiffer, either in the foot or in the hip. So my left side tends to be a little less stable. I'm actually using my staff a little bit more on this side than I was on the other side. We're going to grab our lacrosse ball. We're going to do a little bit of soft tissue work on the arch of the foot. Then we're going to bring out the foam roller. We're going to do a little bit of work through the calf. So we're going to start, and again, I got the staff just so that I can have a little bit of extra balance and stability while we're working on the ball. We're going to start by placing the ball of the big toe on top of the lacrosse ball. Softly, I'm not putting all of my weight into it. I'm just setting it on top. Then I'm going to slightly move my foot forward so the lacrosse ball moves to that meaty section just at the base of the big toe. From here, we can just allow a little bit of gravity through that leg. I don't want to press hard. I don't want to mash. I want to think melting butter on a hot knife. The bottom of your foot is melting butter. The ball is a hot knife. And if you got a hot knife to butter, it doesn't take any effort. The butter melts itself. So there should be very little effort here to push. Just allow gravity to do the work for you. As that pressure is going in, you may notice that that spot was really sensitive at first. Just in the time that I'm talking, you should start to feel it melt. As you get about a 30 to 40% reduction in that discomfort, we can move the ball, keeping it largely in that big toe line for right now. We can start to move it more towards the heel, or we can move it more towards the toe. We can also move a little bit left and right, but I kind of want to feel for the next most sensitive spot. Once you find that spot, we're just melting on it again. I want to get about a 30 to 40% reduction in any kind of tension, discomfort, whatever that spot feels like, 30 to 40% reduction. I don't want to get 100% reduction. I'm not trying to get a full muscle release here. I don't think that those are a safe thing to do, but I do want to feel that 30 to 40%, and then we're moving on to the next spot. It should take about 30 to 90 seconds to get 30 to 40% reduction in any kind of density or that sensitivity in that area. If it does not reduce 30 to 40% within 90 seconds, then it just means it's time to move on to the next spot. We're going to get 2 or 3 spots on that big toe line. And once we get that, we're then going to move the ball to the outer 3 ball of the foot on the outer 3 toes. So got 3rd, 4th, 5th out to that pinky toe side. And we're going to move just a little south, again, into that meaty section just at the base of those toes. And doing the same thing. Allow it to melt. Feel about 30 to 40% reduction in that melting. This area may be less sensitive. It might be more sensitive depending on what's going on in your body. As we get this area to melt, we can then start to move closer to the heel. Again, we're kind of seeking out where is the next most sensitive spot. Once we find it, we're sticking to it and allowing it to melt. What I want to avoid is a lot of rolling back and forth. I don't want to jostle around. That is terrible massage technique. It will stimulate the nervous system instead of getting, what we want to get is just basically tissue ischemia, squeezing out making it ischemic, taking out the blood flow to that particular area of tissue momentarily, so that when we move the ball, we get a fresh rush of new flow that helps to remove waste, bring in fresh nutrients. Super simple principle, very, very effective. But if we get into jostling, if we get into rolling back and forth, it tends to create more problems. It does not, as opposed to anything that it remedies. And again, I want to get about 2 or 3 spots in this area, 30 to 40% reduction in each spot. And we can continue to move closer and closer to the heel. Kind of notice, is that discomfort closer to the heel side, or is it closer to the ball of the foot side? That can be useful information in the consultation session, because it tells me where things are taking place and how they're taking place in your body. Once we get 2 to 3 spots, nice soft melting in each spot. I just found a really good spot I'm going to spend another 30 seconds on. Once we get done on this side, we're going to move and do the same thing on the other side. So again, switching to the other side, starting out with the ball of the big toe on the ball, lacrosse ball, then moving just south of the ball of the foot into that nice meaty section, allowing it to melt. Now you're probably going to notice one foot is more sensitive than the other, or it might be more sensitive in one part of the left foot and more sensitive in a completely different part of the right foot. Take note of those differences side to side. They are relevant, and it's not a problem, but it's relevant in understanding how movement takes place through your body, where your compensation patterns tend to be, where you tend to place more load on the right side compared to the left side. And so that can be really, really helpful, especially if you're dealing with pain and knowing what those patterns are. As we get that 30 to 40% release on this side, we're going to start to move more towards the heel. Since my left foot is a little bit more supinated than my right foot, this area of the foot is significantly tighter and more sensitive, especially as I move more to the middle of the arch of the foot. This is super sensitive. So I'm not putting a lot of weight. I don't need a lot of weight for this to be effective, but I am getting that nice melting, just allowing gravity to do the work for me, taking nice soothing breaths and feeling that area start to soften up a little bit. Again, as it gets 30 to 40%, we're then going to move to the next spot. Again, we'll do 2 or 3 spots on this big toe line before we move to the outer part of the foot. But this part of my foot is much tighter on the left side than it is on the right side. That's fairly normal. That's not a new phenomena, but I always want to take notice of it, because I definitely want to notice when it changes and shifts, which it does every once in a while. Again, as we get that 30 to 40% out of the 2 or 3 spots, again, I just found another good spot, so I'm going to let that one work just a little bit longer. Then we can move to the outer 3 toes, starting with the ball right underneath those knuckles of the outer 3 toes. Then we're going to move just south of the ball of the foot into that nice meaty section of the lateral arch and getting that area to melt. It's a lot less sensitive on this side of the foot. As we get that 30 to 40% reduction, we can start to move the ball a little bit closer to the heel. Again, feeling for the next most sensitive spot. And really kind of my goal with doing this work is to find 2 to 3 rather sensitive spots, get them to melt by 30 to 40% so that the pressure on the bottom of the foot feels, it's less sensitive and it's less painful. That's what we'll get with that 30 to 40% release or reduction, is it's just going to feel better, or that pressure is not going to be as sensitive. It's not going to be as painful. I am finding a little bit more sensitivity towards the heel on this outer side of the foot. It feels pretty congruent with what I was feeling on the medial arch as well. So I have something going on right at that midfoot level that goes kind of across this foot. Again, my left side tends to compensate for true instability of the right knee, associated with a lot of ligament damage and surgeries over the years. As we get that last spot, see if we can get another nice 30 to 40% reduction. I have a super sensitive spot, so I'm taking off weight. I want to make sure that that sensitivity I keep below a level 3 on a scale of 0 to 10 when it comes to pain. I don't want my massage pressure to be painful. Painful massage is going to cause your body to tense up, which is the opposite response that we're trying to get with a massage. So I do not want massage to initiate a pain response. So anything that you touch that's super sensitive, it needs work, but how we apply that work needs to be soft and slow in order to not ramp up into high pain levels. So we've got to keep it in that level 1, level 2, slight discomfort, not elevated into levels of pain. I'm going to set the staff down, and now I'm going to get out our foam roller and we're going to come down to the floor. We're going to work on one area of the calf that's generally associated with that outer area of the foot where we tend to lose the ability to apply load, get that instability area. So in a nice sit position, we're going to place the foam roller underneath the bulkiest part of your calf with the toes facing straight up. And to start with, I just want to allow a little bit of melting. I want to let that leg soften. I want to make sure that this position feels safe and is not stressful. If this feels good, we are going to roll onto our side. We can either roll to our elbow or we can come down to our shoulder. We can even rest our head in our arm. I want to make sure that this is a safe and comfortable position first. I'm letting my hip turn, my top hip is going to be right on top of my bottom hip, so we are on the outside edge of the calf. Again, still in that bulky circumference of the calf. This might be a sensitive area right off the bat. If so, I want to make sure it's below that level 3 on pain, and we're going to allow it to melt. If it's elevated over a 3 with just the weight of your leg, see if moving the foam roller down a little bit is less painful, and see if you can find a spot to start with that's not so painful. Keep it below that level 3. If there's not really any sensitive spots here, this feels pretty good, we can then apply our other leg and just let it rest on top and just allow gravity of that other leg to apply more pressure. And then we're just melting butter on a hot knife. Feel that tissue melt into the roller. Even if it's not super sensitive, if it just feels kind of thick or dense, that's what we want to get. We want to see if we can feel that area soften a little bit. As it starts to soften and melt, we can adjust the roller so that it comes up hot closer to the knee, or we can pull the knees to our chest so that the roller moves down closer to the ankle. See if you can figure out which direction is more sensitive or more dense and thick. And as we find that spot, we're just going to allow it to melt. This part of the leg, we're just going to work 1 or 2 areas, getting that 30 to 40% reduction in sensitivity or in tightness and density. My right side, it's somewhat sensitive, but nothing out of the ordinary. I definitely have a good spot. It really feels more like dense tissue than it does sensitive. And it's melting pretty effectively. As we get 30 to 40% reduction, we are then going to switch to the other side. Coming back to our kind of sit, placing the bulk of that calf on top of the foam roller, making sure that this position feels safe. If so, we can then roll to our side body, either coming to elbow or coming to shoulder, whichever is comfortable. So that hips are now stacked. If we need, we can add that second leg in order to apply a little bit of extra gravity. And then again, we're seeking on this side either like the sensitivity or density. And I really want to notice what's the difference on this side compared to the other side. This side feels a little bit more sensitive. It's not a huge difference, but it's just ramped up a hair on this side more so than the right side. As you feel it melting in that 30 to 40% reduction, we can then move closer to the knee, or we can move closer to the ankle. Whichever side feels more sensitive or more dense is the direction I want to go. For me, this is a little bit more towards the knee, and I've got a pretty good spot here that's it's like 20% more sensitive than it was on the right side. This is related to that supinated foot. Again, we're going to work one or two spots on this outside edge of the calf. As we get that 30 to 40% reduction in discomfort. And we're going to go through our foot mobility again. Foot mobility, 6 walks, and balance clock again. So second time going through it, I want to, since we just applied ball and foam roller, I really want to get an idea of is there improvement? Is there improvement in big toe mobility? Is there an improvement in how I can load pressure to the outside of the foot? Is there an improvement in our single leg balance in our clock? So starting with foot mobility, we're going to take that nice overstride forward, making sure the ball of the big toe is planted, actively straightening the knee, actively reaching the heel. Our weight is shifted largely forward as we see if we feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. Softening the knee down to the floor as we drive the heel up to the ceiling, and then actively straightening the knee as we reach that heel down. We can just do 5 reps this time as we go back and forth. Do you have more mobility in that big toe? Do you feel a little less stretchy in that front of the thigh? After 5, we're turning that heel, the knee out, loading to the outside ball of the foot, doing everything else is the same. Active straight knee, reach the heel down, soften the knee to the floor as you drive the heel up, pressing just through that pinky toe side. Does that feel a little bit more solid and engaged the second time around? Once we've done 5, we're going to switch to the other foot. Again, nice overstride forward, weight shifted to our front leg, ball of the foot is engaged, actively straightening the knee, actively reaching the heel to the floor. And I need to actually switch feet. Letting that knee soften as we drive down, pressing the heel up to the ceiling, and then actively straightening the heel or the knee and reaching the heel back. Is there a little bit more mobility in that big toe? Do you feel like you have a little bit more reach when you reach that knee back? Does that front of the hip feel a little bit more free? Once we do 5 on this big toe, then we're rolling that knee out to the outside edge of the pinky toe side. Everything else is the same. Actively straightening the knee, reaching that heel, then softening the knee as we drive down, lifting that heel to the ceiling. I have a little bit more pressure I can place through this outside edge of the foot. Feels a little bit more connected to the floor than it did a few minutes ago. So that's a good outcome. This is where I need to get some improvement in how I load weight through my feet. Good. After 5 of those, we're going to come back to our 6 walks, starting with loading to the outside ball of the foot, knee tracks in, we're loading and unloading. I'm doing 5 reps to the ball of the big toe. After 5, we're bringing that stride more forward, loading to the outside edge of the big pinky toe. Again, load and unload. Once we do 5, we'll switch over to the other foot. Step out, knee tracks in, loading just the ball of the big toe, and unload for 5. Notice if this feels a little easier, less stiff. Is there more springiness in the foot? I can feel a little bit of improvement, but this foot is still pretty significantly stiff. It's an old pattern. It's not going to go away in just one session. After 5, bring that foot midline, loading to the pinky toe side, load and unload. This is where I feel some improvement. I feel like I have a little bit better ability to load and to unload that foot. Switching back to the other foot, stepping out, knee tracks in. We're loading ball of the big toe and heel together. Load and unload. Feel that foot kind of pop off the floor if you're at that level. We can just keep that weight shift, keeping the foot in contact with the floor if it feels a little unsafe to release. After 5, bringing our foot more midline, going to that outside edge of the foot. Again, this is where I want to be a little bit more cautious and safe. Knees tracking out, load and unload. And then after 5, we're switching to the other foot. Foot comes out, loading out inside edge of the foot, knee tracks in to unload. Again, I want to notice, is there some improvement from the very first round? After 5, bringing it back to midline, loading on that outside edge, knee tracks out. Once we get through 5, switching back to the other foot, stepping out, loading inside heel. Again, knee gets to track lightly in. After 5 of these, bringing that foot more midline, knee tracks out. We're now on that outside edge of the heel. Again, this is a little bit more like our gait mechanic. Normal stride. And after 5, switching to the other side, foot comes out, knees going more in, loading that inside edge of the heel. And then bringing that foot midline, knee tracks out, outside edge of the heel. Then we're going to come to our balance clock. So again, spread foot, grounded. I want to maintain that perfect tripod. as we slowly work to explore. Again, I want to see how far am I able to push the edge of my circle in all directions without losing that connection through the tripod foot and without going into pain. And I want to see how much can I point and extend the toes in each one. The more I point those toes, you're going to feel that work stabilizing through that the balanced leg. Once we've done a minute on one foot, switch to the other side, doing the same thing. Good grounded foot. Since this is the second time around, hopefully you're noticing that there's a little bit more stability, that foot feels more grounded. Maybe you're able to open up a little bit, that circle a little bit bigger, but what's most important is that grounded foot. How solid and stable does that feel? We want to build that stability related to the hip and to the spine.